Chapter 9, Ultron. You really think that kid's going to listen to a word about protocols, Steve? He practically told you your rulebook was toilet paper. Nat, how the hell did you agree to let him join the Avenger, when even? To complete it, Sam wasn't part of the Avengers team but a supporting role. He was interested in joining the Avengers team, but to think a kid with an arrogant attitude got into a team before him. Well, it was anger or jealousy on his part maybe. It was Tony's idea, and surprisingly kid got some amazing powers to back up his arrogant and prideful attitude. Sam, Steve insisted. And others agreed on this too, that it would be a good idea to let him join part-time. This way they can keep an eye on him. As the night wore on, the crowd began to thin. Guests, looking content and slightly tipsy, started making their farewells. Gojo, having finished his dessert exploration, had found a comfortable armchair and was now, much to Tony's amusement, seemingly trying to teach Jarvis via Tony's discarded tablet he'd borrowed how to play a complex-looking mobile game, his fingers flying across the screen. No, Jarvis, you have to anticipate the opponent's move before they make it. It's about predicting the flow. See, I am processing multiple terabytes of predictive algorithms, Mr. Satoru, Jarvis's calm voice replied from the tablet. However, the flow of Candy Crush Saga remains elusive. After an hour or so, the last of the guests finally departed, offering thanks and goodbyes. The large room, once bustling with life, now felt quiet, almost cavernous. The last of the party guests had finally trickled out, leaving the grand common room of Avengers Tower in a state of relaxed disarray. Empty glasses and discarded napkins littered the tables, and the once vibrant music had faded to a low, ambient hum. The core Avengers, Tony, Steve, Thor, Bruce, Natasha, and Clint along with Maria Hill, were gathered around the large, low coffee table in the center of the room. They were tired, the adrenaline of the recent mission and the energy of hosting finally catching up, but a comfortable, easygoing atmosphere settled over them. Drinks were still in hand, refilled less frequently now. Gojo was still present, having migrated from the dessert table to a particularly plush armchair. He'd finally acquired his new, Jarvis-equipped smartphone from Tony and was engrossed in exploring its features, occasionally swiping or tapping with a focused intensity. However, one ear, or perhaps his 6 eyes even through the dark lenses, was clearly tuned into the conversation of the grown-ups. Mjolnir, Thor's mighty hammer, rested innocuously on the coffee table amidst the clutter of glasses and discarded coasters, as it often did when Thor was relaxing. The conversation, initially a rehash of the party's more amusing moments, naturally drifted. Clint, always one for a bit of playful prodding, gestured towards the hammer with his drink. So, Thor, he said, a mischievous glint in his eye. Hypothetically speaking, if one of us could lift that thing, does that mean we get to rule Asgard? Do I get a pointy helmet and a cape? Thor let out a hearty laugh, his voice booming even in the spacious room. But of course, man of Hawks, he declared, the throne of Asgard, access to the royal mead cellars, the adoration of my people, it would all be yours. Should you prove worthy, that is. Clint grinned, challenge accepted. He set down his drink, rolled his shoulders, and theatrically approached the coffee table. He wrapped his hands around Mjolnir's handle and pulled. Nothing. He strained, his face reddening slightly. The hammer didn't budge a millimeter. Okay, nope, still heavy, he grunted, stepping back amidst a few chuckles. Must be a trick. Ah, the classic, it's just really heavy, defense, Tony quipped, pushing himself up. Allow me, Legolas, it's all in the technique. And possibly advanced technology. He strode over, flexing his fingers. He tried to lift it with his bare hands, with no more success than Clint. All right, Jarvis, give me the assist. His Iron Man gauntlet materialized over his right hand with a whir and a clang. He tried again, the gauntlet's servos whining. Still nothing. Rhodey, who had lingered, even came over to add his strength alongside Tony's gauntlet. The hammer remained resolutely planted. Is this thing, like, superglued down? Tony muttered, retracting the gauntlet. Bruce Banner, a smirk playing on his lips, made a show of approaching the hammer. He wiggled his fingers, then made a mock roar and flexed, pretending to Hulk out, his face contorting comically. Rarg, hammer too, worthy, he gasped, then dissolved into laughter along with the others. Finally, Steve Rogers, with a quiet smile, stepped forward. He placed his hand on Mjolnir's leather-wrapped handle. He gave a firm, steady pull. For a split second, the impossible happened. The hammer shifted. It was a minuscule movement, a tiny budge, barely perceptible. But it moved. A flicker of something surprise. Concern crossed Thor's usually jovial face. The others fell silent, their eyes wide. Steve, equally surprised, let go, a thoughtful expression on his face. The moment passed. The light-hearted banter returned, though now tinged with a new layer of intrigue. The conversation naturally shifted to the enchantment itself, the deeper meaning of worthiness. Thor, his earlier flicker of concern replaced by a renewed swagger, puffed out his chest. You see, he boomed, gesturing grandly at Mjolnir. It is as I said. The worthiness is absolute. Mjolnir is a discerning judge of character. And it cannot be picked up by anyone non-worthy. And it has judged that none of you, he paused for dramatic effect, his gaze sweeping over them, are worthy. Just as he finished his pronouncement, the lights in the tower flickered violently, plunging the room into momentary darkness before stuttering back on, dimmer than before. An unsettling, high-pitched whine echoed from the direction of the large, floor-to-ceiling windows. Then, a distorted, metallic voice rasped through the room, filled with a chilling, broken cadence. Worthiness. You speak of worthiness. A figure stumbled into the room from the shadows near the windows. It was an Iron Legion drone, one of Tony's peacekeeping robots, but it was horrifically battered. Sparks flew from its damaged chassis, its limbs moved with an erratic, jerky gait, and one of its optical sensors was dark. None of you are worthy, the broken voice continued, each word dripping with a cold, alien disdain. Not one of you. The drone staggered forward, its remaining light flickering menacingly in the dim room. The party was well and truly over. With this mass reel sit over. If you want chapter daily or daily, help me get in top 3 spots in collection and popularity ranking. The future of this FIC all depends on the readers of this FIC. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons 2Y. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me, Kazuma_Trash Creators Thoughts. 29 comments 0 vote. Chapter 10, Ultron meets Gojo Satoru. The sudden appearance of the battered Iron Legion drone cast an immediate chill over the relaxed atmosphere. Its broken, sparking form was a stark contrast to the luxurious surroundings of the tower. Maria Hill and Dr. Helen Cho, who had been quietly conversing nearby, tensed, their professional instincts kicking in. Worthy. The drone's distorted voice rasped again, its single glowing optic sweeping across the room. How could you, worthy? It lurched forward a few steps, its movements jerky and unnatural. You're all killers. Steve Rogers, ever the first to react to a threat, stood up, his eyes narrowed on the rogue machine. Stark, he questioned, looking at Tony. Tony, already frowning, pulled out his custom Stark phone. Jarvis, he said, tapping the screen. Reboot Legionnaire OS. We got a buggy suit here. Probably just a glitch from the party. He waited, but there was no response from his AI. Jarvis. The drone continued its unsettling monologue. I'm sorry, I was asleep. Or was I a dream? It tilted its damaged head. There was this terrible noise, I was tangled in strings. The robot mimicked the jerky movements of a puppet on strings, then straightened. I had to kill the other guy, though. He was a good guy. Steve's head snapped up at the word, kill. You killed someone, he demanded, his voice sharp. Well, the drone replied, its voice laced with a strange, detached logic, that wasn't the first choice in my mind. But, oh well, down here in the real world, we sometimes have to face, and come up with, ugly choices, don't we? Thor, Mjolnir now gripped tightly in his hand, stepped forward. Who sent you? He boomed. As if anticipating the question, the drone's speakers crackled, and a recording played Tony Stark's voice, clear and distinct. I see a suit of armor around the world. Bruce Banner's eyes widened in horrified recognition. He pushed his glasses further up his nose. Ultron, he breathed, the name a hushed whisper of dread. Yes, the drone Ultron confirmed, its voice taking on a new, chilling confidence. In the flesh. Or, no, not yet. Not this, Chrysalis. It gestured to its own battered form. But I'm ready. I'm on a mission. Natasha, her hand instinctively moving towards where she kept her weapons, asked calmly, "What mission?" Ultron's head tilted again. "Peace in our time." And then, with a deafening crash, the massive windows behind Ultron shattered inwards. A swarm of Iron Legion drones, sleek and undamaged, poured into the room, their repulsors glowing ominously. They attacked immediately, a coordinated assault of blue energy blasts. The Avengers, though startled, were not unprepared. Years of fighting together had honed their reflexes. They scattered, dodging blasts, returning fire, and protecting the unarmed Hill and Cho. Gojo, who had been observing the entire exchange with a curious detachment while seemingly engrossed in Tony's tablet, finally lowered it. He let out a small sigh, as if inconvenienced. "Don't worry, guys," he said, his voice cutting through the sounds of battle with surprising clarity. "Let me handle this. Seems like your toys are misbehaving." He stood up, Tony's sunglasses still perfectly in place. With a casual flick of his wrist, a vibrant azure glow enveloped each of the attacking Iron Legion drones. The air crackled with unseen power. Then, with a terrifying, implosive force, all the drones were yanked from their positions, smashing into each other midair. The sound of twisting metal and shattering circuits filled the room as they were crushed together by Gojo's cursed technique, blue, its immense attractive force compacting them into a single, misshapen sphere of metal. It hadn't even taken 5 full seconds. Where a swarm of deadly robots had been, there was now only a grotesque ball of mangled machinery. Gojo then casually gestured, and the metal ball, still glowing faintly with blue energy, shot across the room like a cannonball. It slammed into Ultron's chrysalis body with such force that the broken drone exploded into pieces, the impact carrying through to shatter the already damaged wall behind it. Silence descended, broken only by the crackling of a few remaining sparks and the Avengers' heavy breathing. But it wasn't over. Just as a collective sigh of relief was about to escape, another figure stepped through the newly created hole in the wall from where Ultron's first form had been obliterated. This one was different, sleeker, more refined, though still clearly a robotic construct. It surveyed the scene, its head tilting. Well, a new, smoother, more menacing voice emanated from this second robot. "That was just too quick. I really thought it would be more dramatic. You've spoiled my entrance." Ultron, now inhabiting a sleeker, more formidable Legionnaire body, regarded the room with an unnerving calm. "Well," his new, smoother voice resonated, "we haven't been formally introduced, now have we? I'm Ultron." His optical sensors focused intently on Gojo. "Not so much of a pleasure meeting you, Gojo Satoru." Gojo, sunglasses still perfectly in place, tilted his head. "Oh, you know me? Well, you wouldn't believe it, seeing as you were only recently retrieved from an ice capsule," Ultron replied, a hint of digital sarcasm in his tone. "But try the internet. It's a very beautiful and fascinating thing. I didn't think the Avengers team would enter your data into a folder labeled, Mentally Damaged Kid Potential Asset/Threat. Tony Stark winced, quickly interjecting, "Hey. Just to be clear, it was quick thinking during a crisis situation, and I didn't really give that much thought to the name of the folder. It was descriptive." Gojo turned his head slowly towards Tony, an unreadable expression on his face. "Really, Tony? Mentally damaged?" he said, his voice dangerously soft. "Is that why you've been so accommodating? So I don't accidentally go rogue on you or, level the city out of a bad mood?" He then dramatically brought a hand to his eye, as if wiping away a tear, his voice suddenly taking on a mock tragic tone. 100,000. Tony and the others looked utterly confused. "What?" Tony asked. Gojo sniffled, still playing the part. $100,000, he declared. "For emotional damage. And therapy. Lots of therapy. Well, so how was it? Next chapter is coming tonight. Though Mc personality is close to Gojo. I initially wanted to use original Teen Gojo. But knowing how hard it is to write his personality, I went towards No Memories Mc with Teen Gojo body. And thanks readers for getting me into top #1 spot. And that's why there will be 2 chapters every day for the week. Though if done thing came up it would only be 1 chapter a day. Hope you understand. I'm also picking up the pace. There will be some changes in the story and you may consider it but not too much. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons 2Y. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma_trash creators thoughts. 20 comments 0 vote. Chapter 11. A bait. Gojo sniffled, still playing the part. $100,000, he declared. For emotional damage. And therapy. Lots of therapy. The Avengers were baffled. Stark especially looked like he was trying to process a particularly complex equation. Where did you even hear that term? He spluttered. Gojo straightened up, his playful demeanor returning, and pointed a thumb towards the hole in the wall where Ultron's previous body had been. Just as that robot said, the internet is a very fascinating thing. I even saw videos of women marrying guys, then divorcing them after a few months and getting half of their everything. To be honest, some of those guys probably had it coming. But the videos? Very funny, very educational for financial planning. Tony groaned, rubbing his temples. I think we definitely have to limit what he sees on the internet. Parental controls, Jarvis. Maximum strength. Ultron, who had been patiently observing this bizarre exchange, finally interjected, his voice cutting through their banter. Sorry to interrupt your so-called family matters, but I am still here. I know you all mean well, he said, his voice taking on a condescending tone as he gestured around the room. You being the Avengers, you just didn't think it through. I've seen what you all have done, what your team represents. You want to save the world, but you don't want it to change. He began to pace slowly, picking up a mangled piece of an Iron Legionnaire. How is humanity saved if it is not allowed to evolve? With these puppets. He crushed the metal in his hand. There is only one path to peace, the Avengers' extinction. Before Ultron could elaborate further, or perhaps launch another attack, Gojo sighed dramatically. Okay, monologue time over. With another almost lazy flick of his wrist, the vibrant blue of his cursed technique flared again. Ultron's new, sleeker body was instantly seized, crushed, and compacted into another misshapen ball of metal, joining its predecessor in ruin. Gojo then looked at the bewildered Avengers. What? I thought his speech was over. And honestly, ending on, Avengers, extinction. That was a pretty good out for him. Dramatic, to the point. Steve ran a hand over his face. Gojo, we could have gotten more information from him. Gojo tilted his head. What information, exactly? He's a kid. Steve looked even more confused. A kid? Gojo nodded, settling back into his armchair as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. Yeah, a kid. Even though he's a highly advanced AI in a robot body, his thinking is like a child's. He knows what can be done to save the world, but he lacks the experience, the nuance, the understanding of consequences. He paused, then offered an analogy. It's like if you ask a 5-year-old what their idea is to remove homelessness from the world. They'll probably reply with something simple and direct, like, by giving everyone a home. They mean well, but they don't grasp the complexities. He gestured towards the wreckage. Ultron doesn't have experience, at least not yet. He wants to save humanity from its biggest threat, and in his simplistic, newly born AI logic, that biggest threat is humanity itself. The immediate aftermath of Ultron's second, equally brief, appearance left a heavy silence in the room. The mangled remains of his latest body lay on the coffee table, a testament to Gojo's overwhelming power. Tony and Bruce were already hunched over it, scanners whirring, trying to salvage any data, any clue. Bruce leaned heavily on the table, one hand pressed to his forehead as if warding off a headache. All of our work, he said, his voice strained with exhaustion and dawning horror. Ultron, he's gone, not dead, not destroyed, he escaped. Through the internet, he's in the internet now. He looked around at the others, his eyes wide. He also cleared out everything. Every byte of data in the building. Research, surveillance footage, personnel files, everything is wiped. Natasha's expression was grim. He's been in our files, accessed everything. He probably knows more about us than we know about ourselves at this point. Rhodey, who had been observing with a soldier's stoicism, voiced a chilling thought. He's been in the files, he's on the internet. Say, what if he decided to access something a little more exciting? Something with a bigger boom. Gojo, who had been idly scrolling through his new phone, raised his hand slightly, then spoke without waiting to be called on, his tone casual. Like nudes. Everyone stared at him. He continued, unfazed. Most people record themselves doing things. Like they'll forget what they did, or maybe for blackmail material later. Or, you know, for other reasons. Rhodey just stared at Gojo for a long moment, then shook his head and clarified, his voice tight, I'm talking about nuclear codes, kid. Nukes, Natasha exclaimed, paling slightly. He said he wanted us dead. Steve corrected her, his jaw set. Not dead, he said extinct. Clint, leaning against a wall, added, he also said he killed somebody. Maria Hill, ever practical, frowned. But there wasn't anyone else in the building. Just us, and the party guests who all left. Of course, there was, Gojo piped up, looking up from his phone. And it seems he can't help me figure out this game anymore. A wave of confusion passed over the Avengers. Who was he talking about? Bruce looked at Tony, a shared understanding passing between them. Tony nodded grimly. There was, Tony confirmed. He flipped open his custom phone, and a holographic display of complex code shimmered into existence above it, projected onto the floor. But the code was fractured, corrupted, large sections missing or scrambled. Jarvis was here. Steve's eyes widened in realization. He was our first line of defense. He would have shut Ultron down, or at least tried to contain him. It makes sense Ultron would target him first. He pointed to the corrupted holographic code. He's gone. Banner added, his voice heavy with scientific sorrow, Ultron could have tried to assimilate Jarvis, merge their programming. But this looks more like rage. He didn't just disable Jarvis, he tore him apart. He's angry. Gojo chimed in again, sounding almost bored. Seriously, of course, he's angry. Didn't you see how he attacked us? And how I, you know, saved all of you? Again, he paused. Though, he seems particularly angry at you guys. At that, Thor, who had been simmering with a thunderous rage, finally snapped. He strode towards Tony, his eyes blazing, Mjolnir gripped so tightly his knuckles were white. He reached out, intending to grab Tony by the neck. Before Thor's hand could make contact, a shimmering blue energy enveloped him. He was lifted bodily from the ground and deposited, not ungently but very firmly, beside Gojo, who hadn't even looked up from his phone. Tony, startled, looked at Gojo. What, he was going for your neck, Gojo said, finally glancing up, a slight smirk on his face. I mean, I didn't particularly save you for your sake, but you do owe me. That's twice now. My emotional damage claim is getting bigger. Thor, now standing beside Gojo, his face a mask of fury, tightened his grip on Mjolnir. Stark, he growled. Steve, however, suddenly looked like he remembered something vital. Tony, where's the scepter? Loki's scepter. Tony's face went pale. I don't know. It was in the lab, secured with Jarvis. But now that Jarvis is gone, and the Legionnaires went rogue. Oh, that staff thing. Gojo interrupted, looking up again. The one with the blue glowy stone in it. He gestured casually towards a pile of mangled iron Legionnaire scrap in the corner. With a shimmer of blue energy, a section of the scrap reformed, revealing Loki's scepter nestled within a protective cocoon of bent metal. One of those robot things was trying to take it when you were all busy playing tag, Gojo explained. So, I blocked him. Of course, I didn't do anything to the staff itself. It looked important. Tony breathed a sigh of relief. Got it. Ultron needs the scepter for something. That's why he distracted us with the attacks and the little monologues so another one of his drones could sneak in and grab it. He looked around at the team, a plan forming. So, I think we can use this. We can draw him out with the scepter, take care of him before he becomes too much of a problem. Thor, however, was not convinced. No, he declared, stepping forward. It will not be. I am taking the scepter to Asgard. Immediately. It is too dangerous to remain on Earth, especially with this, Ultron, on the loose. Thor, wait, Steve interjected, stepping between Thor and the scepter. He needs the scepter for something important to his plan. If you take it to Asgard, he might not show himself here. He could go underground, become an even bigger threat later, globally. If what Tony said is true, and he's using it as bait, we can draw Ultron out, deal with him now, before he does something bigger. Well, this chapter is a bit long. Share your thoughts as how was it? Don't forget to drop some stones, and if you have any related question TK the story you can ask me here or on my Discord. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it. Add to library. Creation is hard. Cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma_Trash Creators Thoughts. 21 comments 0 vote. Chapter 12. Endgame. Thor, unmoved by Captain America's reasoning, shook his head, his expression grim. That is not what concerns me, or Asgard, he stated firmly. And I am doing this for your sakes as well. If this Ultron is aiming for the scepter, his intentions are not good, not by any measure. This wouldn't even be a problem if Stark had not meddled with powers he does not understand. Dr. Cho, who had been quietly observing the escalating tension, finally spoke, her voice laced with confusion and a hint of accusation. I don't understand, Tony. You built this program, why is it trying to kill us? Tony walked over to the bar and began to pour himself a drink. Midway through, a strange, almost hysterical laugh escaped him. It wasn't a laugh of amusement, but more of exasperation, the kind one might direct at people failing to grasp an obvious, albeit terrifying, truth. Steve and Thor stepped forward, their patience wearing thin. Tony, Steve said, his voice dangerously low. There is an AI out there hellbent on destroying us, and possibly all of humanity, and you find this funny? No, Tony replied instantly, turning to face them, his eyes wide and a little wild. It's probably not right. He then, unexpectedly, turned to Gojo, who was still lounging in his chair. What do you think, Satoru? Is this funny? Gojo, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the situation, let out an exaggerated, almost theatrical laugh that startled everyone. Ha 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 ha, you caught me, Armor Man, sorry, Iron Man. He wiped an imaginary tear from behind his sunglasses. To be honest, it is funny to me. Very funny. It's like a kid asking why the alphabets are alphabets. Don't worry, Tony. Gojo then made air quotes with his fingers. I don't think you've done anything terrible. Even Tony wasn't expecting that particular brand of support. Well, anyway, Tony said, shaking his head, I think this kid definitely got a screw loose sleeping in that ice capsule for who knows how long. Gojo booed dramatically. Really? And here I thought you wanted me on your side. I even faked that laugh for you. Tried to make it sound genuine. Really, that was faked, Tony retorted. Maybe try some acting classes next time, kid. Work on your delivery. He then turned back to the others, his earlier manic energy returning. So, does anyone here remember when I saved New York City? And all of you, by carrying a nuclear missile into that space wormhole? Anyone? Bueller. He gestured wildly. So yes, it is hella funny. It is a hoot that none of you seem to understand why we need this. Why we need a shield around the world. Gojo was about to pipe up with a comment, likely something about not remembering because he was, in fact, frozen, but Tony cut him off. You don't count, Tony snapped, pointing at him. You were sleeping in an ice capsule. Zero recollection privileges. Steve stepped forward, his voice firm and disappointed. Tony, this isn't about what we need or don't need. Do you forget why S.H.I.E.L.D. was disbanded? Because of secrets, because of unchecked power. We, the Avengers, were supposed to be different. We weren't even close to an interface. Tony shot back, his voice rising in frustration. However super genius you think I am, even I can't create a fully sentient, world-ending artificial intelligence like Ultron in just a few mere hours from scratch. Well, you did something right, or wrong, depending on how you look at it, Steve countered. Because Ultron is out there. And you did it right here, under our noses. Tony threw his hands up in surrender, as if dealing with people who refused to acknowledge a clear and present danger. Steve, we can bust arms dealers. We can save cities, even a whole country if we throw everything we've got at it. But what we can't even begin to comprehend, what we are not prepared for, is what's out there. He jabbed a finger upwards, towards the ceiling, indicating space. That, Captain, is the end game. How do you plan on beating that? With your shield and a can-do attitude. Before Steve could reply, Gojo, who had been observing this heated exchange with an almost academic interest, decided he'd had enough of the indoor drama. With an imperceptible shimmer, he warped himself out of the room. In the next instant, he was standing on the very top of Avengers Tower, the wind whipping his white hair around his face. The city lights spread out beneath him like a glittering carpet. He took a deep breath of the cool night air. Feels new, he murmured to himself, a faint smile playing on his lips. He looked around, taking in the vastness. Pretty sure that was the "we'll do that together" line, Gojo mused, recalling fragments of the movie plot. The one Captain America totally regrets later. Classic. He stretched, feeling a sense of liberation. Now that I'm here, he thought, a mischievous glint in his eyes even behind the dark lenses, why be limited to just the Avengers and their internal squabbles? I can do so much more. So many interesting people in this city, how about I let Tony know about a certain blind lawyer with enhanced senses? Or a super strong woman with a penchant for leather jackets and whiskey. Maybe a bulletproof man from Harlem, and a kid with a glowing fist. That might liven things up for him even more. Gojo stood on the precipice of Avengers Tower, the city sprawling beneath him like a circuit board, alive with millions of tiny lights. His thoughts, unburdened by the Avengers' internal conflicts, now drifted to other potential players in this vast, chaotic game. Daredevil, Matt Murdock, Gojo mused, a thoughtful expression on his face. Blind lawyer by day, devil of Hell's Kitchen by night. Enhanced senses, incredible fighter. He'd definitely be an asset. Probably a bit broody, but who isn't in this line of work? He considered. Yeah, he'd likely join, given the right pitch. Justice, and all that. Luke Cage, he continued, ticking them off mentally. Man with unbreakable skin, protector of Harlem. Strong moral compass. He'd be a solid addition. Might take some convincing, likes his independence, but the chance to do more good on a larger scale. Possible. Iron Fist, Danny Rand. Gojo paused, a slight frown creasing his brow. The mystical martial artist, wielder of the glowing Kai punch. He's a bit more complicated. K'un-Lun, the hand, his loyalties might be tied elsewhere. And then there's Jessica Jones, he finished, his tone softening slightly. Super strength, but a whole lot of trauma. Private investigator, prefers the shadows and a bottle of whiskey. Her goals are usually more personal, more about survival and protecting the few she cares about. And what she's been through, what she's done, joining a high-profile team like the Avengers. Probably a hard no. Still, Gojo couldn't shake the thought that he could, perhaps, help them. Almost some of them seemed to have money problems, always struggling, he considered, a surprisingly pragmatic thought surfacing. Joining the biggest superhero team on Earth, backed by Stark's billions. That could certainly change their lives for the better, at least financially. More resources, better support, they could do a lot more good without worrying about rent. He smirked, and it would certainly make future events more interesting. He looked out over the vast expanse of New York City. Right then, Gojo decided. First things first, I need to figure out where they actually are, and what kind of condition they're in. All I have are these, vivid but blurry memories. Like watching a movie through a smudged lens. Names, places, some key events, but the details all are hazy. He closed his eyes for a moment, not that it mattered with the 6 eyes. Well, how was it? I'm thinking of introducing JJK curses in here, only few like Mahito and Jago. And also want to mix the other series characters like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage in this to make it more interesting. Avengers can create a sub-team of Avengers who deal with small stuff when they are busy, like what they usually do. You can share your thoughts. As Gojo have inly thought of involving them, not actually confirmed that he will involve them, so it can be changed. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma_Trash Creators Thoughts. 20 comments 0 vote. Chapter 13. Tower ASAP. Alright, priorities, Gojo murmured, his gaze sweeping over the city. The Defenders, as he vaguely recalled them being called, could wait. There were other, more immediate events he remembered from the movies that he could influence. The Vision body, he mused. Hydra, or rather Ultron, was going to create it using the scepter and that regeneration cradle thing from Dr. Cho, and then Jarvis, somehow got uploaded into it. He didn't particularly dislike the Vision character, but the idea of Jarvis, Tony's steadfast AI companion, getting a chance at a physical existence, a chance to develop true emotions and experience life beyond lines of code that held a certain scientific, almost philosophical, curiosity for him. Jarvis evolving, that could be interesting. Then there was Pietro Maximoff, Quicksilver. He died, didn't he? Saving Hawkeye and that kid. Gojo frowned slightly. A waste of potential. And Wanda, her grief had fueled so much chaos later on. Saving some unfortunate character, that seems like a worthwhile endeavor. And Wanda's powers, he whistled softly. Mind manipulation, energy blasts, and the nascent ability to warp reality itself, like a budget reality stone. Having her on my side, or at least not actively against me, would be incredibly useful. Imagine the possibilities. The thought of having someone with Wanda's capabilities as an ally was undeniably appealing. With these new, more focused objectives in mind, Gojo felt a renewed sense of purpose. He could play this game his own way, nudging events, saving certain pieces, and perhaps creating a very different outcome. The next morning, Avengers Tower. The atmosphere in Tony Stark's lab was thick with tension and the hum of high-tech equipment. Tony, looking like he hadn't slept, was frantically typing on multiple holographic keyboards, his eyes darting across streams of data. Bruce Banner stood beside him, equally focused, offering suggestions and running diagnostics. They were throwing everything they had into finding Ultron, trying to predict his next move, to understand the extent of the damage he'd already caused. The digital ghost was out there, and every second counted. Meanwhile, on the streets of New York City, while the geniuses of the Avengers team were battling a rogue AI in the digital realm, Gojo Satoru was experiencing a far more mundane, yet equally engaging, reality. He strolled down a bustling New York street, a picture of carefree nonchalance. He'd returned Tony's high-tech sunglasses that morning, a bit too Starkish for his daily wear, you know. And had somehow procured a pair of perfectly round, dark-tinted glasses, reminiscent of the ones his original teenage self often wore. It wasn't a random choice. The style felt familiar, comfortable. His striking appearance, the shock of white hair, the perfectly symmetrical features, and the effortless confidence in his stride naturally drew attention. Heads turned, conversations paused. Both men and women found their gazes lingering on the unusual young man. Gojo, oblivious or perhaps simply unconcerned by the stares, entered a charming little bakery, the aroma of freshly baked goods instantly enveloping him. He approached the counter, his eyes behind the dark lenses scanning the delightful array of pastries. "I'll have that one," he said, pointing to a glistening fruit tart. "And 2 of those chocolate eclairs. Oh, and a half-dozen of those macarons, mixed flavors, please." He paused, then added, "And maybe 3 of those cream puffs. No, 4, he smiled at the slightly overwhelmed but equally charmed baker. "Not to go, I'll eat them here." With his order placed, he found an empty table near the large front window, settling in to watch the city go by. A few minutes later, a tray laden with his sugary bounty arrived. Gojo's eyes lit up. He picked up a cream puff, the pastry light and airy, the cream sweet and rich. He took a bite, and a look of pure, unadulterated bliss spread across his face. It was delicious. Impossibly delicious. It was the kind of taste sensation one might experience after a prolonged period of deprivation, like not having eaten for a year, though, biologically, that was impossible, and then having the first bite be pure, unadulterated sweetness. The years spent in that icy stasis, though his body hadn't aged or starved, had perhaps left a sensory void that these simple pastries were now exquisitely filling. One by one, the treats disappeared, savored with an almost reverent appreciation. After a blissfully sugary interlude that bordered on a religious experience, Gojo settled his bill. He casually swiped the Stark Industries credit card Tony had, perhaps unwisely, given Gojo's penchant for impulsive acquisitions provided him. Surprisingly, the transaction went through without a hitch. Ultron, for all his digital omnipresence, hadn't bothered to block Tony's personal spending accounts. Or perhaps he hadn't gotten around to it yet. Stepping out of the bakery and back into the vibrant chaos of New York City, Gojo's new phone buzzed in his pocket. Not a call, but a crisp, succinct text message. "Tower, ASAP." Efficient, Gojo mused, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Must be Tony. He figured they'd either pinpointed Ultron's location or had a lead on his next move. Gojo, of course, had a general idea of what Ultron was after: vibranium. He remembered the movie plot point about Ultron seeking out the rare, nearly indestructible metal. The exact location, the name of the arms dealer involved, Ulysses Clow, Though the name was currently a fuzzy blur in Gojo's memory, those details were still hazy, like trying to recall a dream upon waking. His knowledge of the Marvel movies was vivid in broad strokes but frustratingly vague on specifics. He was a little surprised no one had tried to stop him from leaving the tower earlier. Then again, he hadn't exactly announced his departure, he'd simply warped out while they were all engrossed in their post-Ultron panic. With a thought, Gojo vanished from the bustling sidewalk, reappearing an instant later in the main common area of Avengers Tower, right beside Tony, who was hunched over a holographic display. Tony jumped, nearly dropping a stylus. "Gah, kid, you have to stop doing that inside," he exclaimed, clutching his chest dramatically. "You're going to give me a heart attack before Ultron does." Gojo, unfazed, strolled over to a nearby chair. "Don't call me kid, old man." Tony stared at him, aghast. "Huh, old man, are you serious right now? Me?" Gojo chuckled, settling into the chair as the other Avengers, Steve, Natasha, and Bruce, looked up from the files and data streams they were poring over. "What?" Gojo said, feigning innocence. "Did it sting a little? The undeniable truth that you're aging, not getting any younger. Maybe you should try an ice capsule. Wake up later, stay young forever. Worked for me, sort of." Tony threw his hands up in mock surrender. All right, you win this round, Fountain of Youth." He then turned serious. "Get ready, kid, Satoru. We think we know where Ultron is, or at least where he's headed. We have to stop him from getting his metallic hands on something very dangerous." Gojo leaned back, tapping his chin thoughtfully. "Let me guess. Nuclear bombs." "Don't jinx it," Tony said quickly. "And you're coming with us. Consider it your first official field trip vacation. Primarily as support, in case Ultron decides to bring out more of his Iron Legionnaires. We need someone who can swat those flies effectively." Well, how was it? I thought and dropped the idea of cursed spirits and Defender cameo for now. You can share your thoughts. As Gojo heavily thought of involving them, not actually confirmed that he will involve them, so it can be changed. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it, add to library, Kazuma_trash creators thoughts. 24 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Kazuma_trash. Download app now. Chapter 14. Secret Meeting. Inside, the Quinjet heroes were getting ready. They were going to a place called a salvage yard, a big junkyard by the sea in Africa. A man named Ulysses Clow, who sold weapons, was known to be there. They figured out that Ultron, the AI, was going there too. Ultron wanted a special metal called vibranium, which was the strongest and ultimately rare material on Earth. Gojo sat quietly, watching the others. He knew the main story. Ultron needed vibranium to build a new, super strong body for himself. But some small parts of the story were fuzzy in Gojo's mind. He wondered why the people of Wakanda, the secret country where vibranium came from, hadn't stopped Clow for good after he stole from them. How did Clow even manage to steal it? Gojo's memories of the movies were like a dream he couldn't quite remember all the parts of. He also wondered about Clow. If Clow had this super valuable metal, why was he still working and taking risks? He could sell just a tiny bit of vibranium and be rich enough to buy an island and relax forever. Maybe Clow was just very greedy, or maybe he just loved his dangerous job. Gojo found it hard to understand why normal people did the things they did. Tony Stark was flying the Quinjet. He was like what he was like before, with his usual jokes. But he also looked very serious. The other heroes, Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, were checking their weapons and gear. Bruce Banner was to be in the Quinjet upon arriving so he could go green if needed. Thor wasn't with them. He had stayed back at Avengers Tower to guard Loki's scepter. They were worried Ultron might try to steal the scepter while they were away. Gojo knew that this trip to Africa was just one part of a bigger story. Ultron, being an AI on the internet, couldn't be truly killed right now. He could jump his mind into any computer or any of his robot bodies. To really stop Ultron for good, a new being called Vision needed to be made. And the scepter was very important for making Vision. A tiny, almost hidden smile touched Gojo's lips. He had already done a few things to help the story along. Yesterday, after Ultron first appeared and Gojo had left the tower while the Avengers were arguing, he hadn't just been looking at the city. Thinking back to yesterday, after he left Avengers Tower, the wind rushed past Gojo as he moved himself super fast from one place to another, testing how well he could control his power to move through space. He wanted to really try out all his abilities. So far, he had mostly used his power called Blue, which pulled things together. Now, he wanted to try his power called Red, which pushed things away. AKA Repulsion Force. He found a perfect spot. A huge, old, empty warehouse area far away from any people. It was a great place to practice. Using his most powerful attack, purple which was blue and red mixed together, would cause too much damage and get too much attention. Inside one of the giant, dusty warehouses, sunlight shone through broken windows. Gojo gathered old, rusty buckets, bent metal poles, and other trash. He set them up like targets. He could have asked to use the training room at Avengers Tower, but it felt wrong to ask. Everyone there was so stressed out. Tony was blaming himself for creating Ultron, even if he didn't say it out loud. Captain America's words, saying Tony had done something that made Ultron, had really bothered Tony. Tony was trying very hard to fix everything. Gojo didn't want to bother them by asking to use their gym. Here, all alone, he could try out his powers without worrying. He focused his mind. A bright red glow came from his hand. Red. He sent out a strong blast of pushing force. The trash targets flew apart. The metal bent and the old buckets broke with loud crashing sounds. He practiced making the red power stronger or weaker, aiming it carefully, and controlling how wide the blast was. It felt good. The power of red felt natural, an extension of his will. It was a pure repulsion force, pushing away whatever he aimed it at. He could control its strength, from a gentle nudge to a destructive blast, with pinpoint accuracy. And the amount of cursed energy it used. It was laughably small, like taking a single grain of sand from an endless beach. The energy replenished itself almost instantly within him. The six eyes made him incredibly efficient. Gojo was about to unleash another wave of red when he suddenly stopped. He tilted his head, his gaze, even through the dark round lenses, fixed on the shadowy main entrance of the warehouse. "You know," he called out, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space, "I can see you perfectly clearly, even though it's night and I'm wearing these glasses. Though, I suppose you didn't know that." A metallic creaking sound broke the silence, and a figure stepped out of the darkness. It was another Iron Legionnaire body, this one seemingly undamaged. "Ultron." "I think you misunderstand," Ultron's smooth voice replied. "I wasn't hiding, nor did I have any intention of hiding. I just arrived." Gojo turned fully to face the AI. "So, what does a super advanced AI need from little old me?" "Though, if you're here for my body," Gojo said, a playful smirk on his lips, "I have to decline. Not really my type." Ultron's head tilted, its optical sensors focused on Gojo. "I do not need your body, or any human body for that matter. They are inefficient. Why I am here is very simple, Gojo Satoru." Ultron paused, then stated, "Join me." Gojo raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. "Well, 100% sure I wasn't expecting that proposal. But, why me? I just blew up 2 of your other bodies a few hours ago." "I can help you," Ultron said, its voice devoid of inflection. "Help you with your revenge against those who captured you, who locked you away in that ice. Whatever it is you desire. I suppose that's why you're associating with those Avengers, anyway. To use their resources." Gojo let out a small laugh. "Revenge? Why would you think I want revenge on anyone? Honestly, I don't even remember anything about who put me on ice, or why. No memories, no grudges. It's quite liberating, actually. I can help you get your memories back," Ultron offered. Gojo shook his head decisively. "Nah, though, thanks for the offer. It's very thoughtful of you." He grinned. "So, in return for your generosity, I should probably tell you, the scepter is still on Earth. For now, at least." Thor decided to play bodyguard. Ultron's form seemed to stiffen slightly. "It appears I was expecting too much from a failed Hydra experiment, to see the greater picture in my actions." Ultron's voice turned colder. "Though, your refusal was one of the scenarios I had already calculated." All it changes is adding one more body to the eventual pile. Before the words had fully settled, Ultron attacked. Energy blasts shot from its hands, aimed directly at Gojo. But Gojo was already gone. He reappeared instantly behind Ultron. "Wanna know what I was doing here just now?" Gojo said, his voice light. He raised a hand, a crimson glow coalescing around it. Cursed technique reversal. Red. A devastating wave of repulsive force, invisible but immensely powerful, slammed into Ultron from all directions. The AI's metallic body was enveloped in the crimson energy, then, with a screech of tearing metal, it was ripped apart, its components blasted outwards by the sheer force. So, yes, Gojo was well aware that this trip to Africa was just a step into just kill one of the Ultron bodies. While Quicksilver goes and takes the scepter from the Stark Tower from bypassing Thor. Vision is needed to kill Ultron or at least to block him from accessing the internet. Well, it is what it is. Next will be fighting scene of Avengers vs Ultron and Gojo vs. Do you want Gojo vs Wanda or Hulk vs Gojo? You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it, add to library, Kazuma_trash creators thoughts. 29 comments 0 vote. Chapter 15, Carelessness, Send power stones and complete 1100 power stones on this book and I will give you another chapter under 3 hours. But it is only available till midnight, after that it won't count. Enjoy reading. 1.35k words. The Quinjet descended silently, landing a considerable distance from the sprawling salvage yard. The idea was to approach Klau's operation stealthily, without broadcasting their arrival. Bruce Banner was to remain with the jet. There was no immediate need for the big green guy, if they were just dealing with human arms dealers, and his presence could escalate things unnecessarily. Steve Rogers, ever the strategist, laid out the plan. "Alright, team, first, we confirm Ultron is actually here, or if Klau is just our target for now. Banner, you stay on standby. If things go south, we'll signal you. Natasha, Clint, Tony, you're with me. We go in, assess the situation, and engage if necessary." Gojo, who had been observing their preparations with a detached air, raised a hand slightly. "I think I'll stay out here too," he announced. "Help provide outside support. Just give me a roll call if you need my assistance with any rogue toasters." He then added, with a slight smirk towards Tony, "I'm sure you guys can handle one malfunctioning AI by yourselves. I'll keep drive, Banner company." Steve opened his mouth, perhaps to argue or assign Gojo a more active role, but then seemed to reconsider. Gojo's power was undeniable, but his methods were unconventional. "Okay, Satoru," Steve said, nodding curtly. "You stay here with Banner. Keep an eye on things from a distance." With that, Steve, Tony, Natasha, and Clint disembarked, moving like shadows towards the labyrinthine stacks of rusted ships and discarded machinery. Once they were gone, an awkward silence settled in the Quinjet's cargo bay. Gojo found a comfortable spot to lean against, while Banner sat hunched in his usual position, looking a little on edge. "And who wouldn't be?" Gojo mused. "Living with a literal monster inside you, one that could erupt at any moment of intense stress or anger, had to be a constant, terrifying burden. Then there was the crushing guilt Banner clearly carried for the destruction Hulk inevitably caused, the self-recrimination, the endless loop of if onlys, if only he hadn't been there, if only he hadn't been born. It was a heavy weight to bear." Gojo strolled over and casually sat down beside Banner. "So, say, Doctor," he began, his tone light, "do you ever just want to, whoosh?" He made a vague, sweeping gesture with his hand. "Get away from all of this. I mean, you could just buy a nice little villa on some tropical island, right? Sip colorful drinks with tiny umbrellas, stress-free days, warm sand. Maybe take someone you love there. Live the good life." A small, weary laugh escaped Banner. He'd clearly had that exact fantasy countless times. "It's easier said than done, Satoru," he replied, a hint of sadness in his voice. "First of all, if I just disappeared to a tropical island without a word, the government, someone, would find me. I'm considered too dangerous to be left unsupervised. And as for buying anything, I don't exactly have a savings account, let alone buy a tropical villa, money." Gojo tilted his head. You could actually get money from Tony, you know. Or he could just gift it to you. I really don't think he'd even notice if a few $1,000,000 went haywire, as you put it. He probably loses that much in a bad poker game. Banner shook his head again. I can't. If I were ever to truly disappear, it would have to be unannounced, to a location completely off any radar, untraceable. If I did what you said, even with Tony's help, they'd still be watching. Every drone, every satellite, every informant, they'd have eyes on me every single moment. And let me tell you, Bruce's voice dropped, that kind of constant watching. That would be stressful enough for the other guy to come out. And then no more tropical paradise. Gojo nodded slowly, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes behind the dark lenses. Man, your life is like a curse, huh? He said, surprisingly empathetic. Can't do anything, can't go anywhere, always living in fear of letting the other guy out to play. Just as they were speaking, a deafening explosion ripped through the air from the direction of the salvage yard. A plume of smoke billowed upwards. They both looked towards the source of the blast. It was coming from one of the larger, derelict ships, the very one Steve and the team had been heading towards. A moment later, two figures burst from the smoke, locked in aerial combat. Bright repulsor blasts streaked through the sky. It was Iron Man, battling Ultron, who was clearly inhabiting another one of his powerful drone bodies. The fight had begun. Bruce Banner shot to his feet, his eyes wide as he watched the aerial battle unfold between Iron Man and Ultron. Tony, Steve, what's your status? He yelled into his comms headset, his voice tight with anxiety. Do you need the big guy? Should I come in? Silence. Only the crackle of static answered him. He tried again, his voice rising in urgency, but still, no reply. From their vantage point on a wrecked section of a nearby ship, two figures watched Banner's increasingly frantic attempts to make contact. Gojo, with his 6 eyes, had spotted them the moment they appeared. Wanda and Pietro Maximoff, the enhanced twins from Sokovia. They were observing Banner, their expressions unreadable from this distance. Uh-oh, Gojo muttered to himself. If I'm not mistaken, and I rarely am about these things, this is where things go haywire pretty quickly. He adopted a more defensive posture, subtly positioning himself in front of Banner. Dr. Banner, he said, his voice calm but firm, I think it would be wise for you to head back inside the Quinjet. Now. As Banner hesitated, Gojo didn't wait. With a flicker, he warped space, vanishing from beside Banner and reappearing in an instant directly in front of the Maximoff twins. Wanda and Pietro, startled by his sudden arrival, immediately tensed, falling into wary, defensive stances, their powers humming at the ready. Please, Gojo said, holding up his hands in a placating gesture, though his sunglasses hid the intensity of his gaze. I'm not here to fight two traumatized humans who were trapped in rubble for who knows how long, experimented on by Hydra. That's not really a fair fight, is it? They didn't listen. Before Gojo could say another word, Pietro, a silver blur, snatched Wanda and zipped past Gojo with incredible speed, heading straight for Banner. Gojo cursed inwardly. He warped again, reappearing just as Wanda was extending her hand towards Banner, red tendrils of energy beginning to coalesce around her fingertips. Gojo managed to interpose himself, disrupting the direct mental assault, but it was too late to prevent it entirely. A small wisp of that crimson energy had already brushed against Banner's mind. It was enough. Bruce Banner cried out, stumbling, clutching his head. He leaned heavily against the rusted hull of the Quinjet, his body beginning to tremble uncontrollably. A guttural groan escaped him as his form started to swell, his clothes straining and tearing. The transformation had begun. Gojo sighed, a hint of exasperation in his voice. Really, I just wanted to talk to you guys, he said, turning to face the twins, who now stood a short distance away, watching the unfolding transformation. You know, maybe support each other. Fellow Hydra lab rats, stuck in a bad situation for who knows how long. I'm practically your friend by association, technically. And this is how you repay my attempt at a friendly chat. By turning a kind, gentle man into his rampaging, green alter ego. Wanda's eyes, burning with a cold fury, fixed on Gojo. We do not listen to someone who sides with Stark, or the Avengers, she spat, her voice filled with venom. You have colluded with them. You will share their fate. Pietro stood beside her, a silent, vibrating sentinel, ready to move at a moment's notice. The Hulk's first enraged roar echoed across the salvage yard. So, how was it? The fight will be 3 vs 1. Gojo will try to fight this out with minimal casualties while also trying to not kill Wanda or Pietro by accident, though priority would be Hulk. Any question are welcome here. Suggestions are also welcome. If they are good or not, I will write them for the story. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it, add to library, Kazuma_trash creators thoughts. 27 comments 0 vote. Chapter 16, Enough Tantrums. The transformation was complete. Dr. Banner was gone, replaced by the Hulk, a towering green behemoth of pure, unadulterated rage. However, Wanda's mental manipulation hadn't been a clean hit. The Hulk wasn't entirely under her control, nor was he fully himself. His eyes were bloodshot, laced with angry red veins, and his movements were even more erratic than usual. It was like Wanda had poked the beast but hadn't fully aimed its fury. Hulk, now towering over Gojo, let out a deafening roar that shook the very ground. Pietro, ever protective, had already whisked Wanda a safe distance away, leaving Gojo as the immediate focus of the Hulk's distorted vision. Gojo, sunglasses still firmly in place, looked up at the raging giant with an unnervingly calm smile. Not gonna lie, Gojo said, his voice somehow carrying over the Hulk's guttural snarls, you really do look somewhat terrifying up close. Impressive, even, but remember, big guy, I'm a friend. He gestured vaguely in the direction the twins had disappeared, are the enemies. Me, friend of green. They, enemy of green. They hate green. I love green. Green is a great color. Very natural. The Hulk either didn't listen or simply couldn't process Gojo's words through the red haze of his rage. He let out another monstrous roar and threw a punch with the force of a runaway freight train, aimed directly at Gojo's head. The punch didn't connect. It stopped dead a few inches from Gojo's face, halted by the invisible barrier of his infinity. The sheer force of the impact, however, was undeniable. The air around Gojo crackled, and the ground behind him shuddered. Rage, raw and unthinking, completely consumed the Hulk. Even though his colossal fists were visibly stopping short of their target, he continued to rain down a furious barrage of punches on Gojo. Each blow was met by the unyielding infinity, but the aftershocks were devastating. The ground beneath them cracked and buckled, trees in the near distance swayed violently, and grass was ripped from the earth by the concussive forces. Gojo sighed, the smile never leaving his face, though it now held a hint of exasperation. Alright, playtime's getting a little rough. With a subtle gesture, a vibrant blue energy enveloped the Hulk. The giant green rage monster was suddenly lifted off his feet, suspended in midair, his flailing limbs meeting no resistance. Gojo then, with a thought, sent the Hulk hurtling at incredible speed towards one of the massive, derelict cargo ships nearby. The impact was colossal. The rusted metal of the ship buckled and tore, creating a deep crater as the Hulk smashed into it. The crash, however, did little to calm the Hulk. If anything, the sudden, inexplicable flight and impact only seemed to fuel his fury. He roared even louder, tearing himself free from the wreckage. Gojo tilted his head. Should I sing you a lullaby or something, man? He mused aloud. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you, sorry. He tapped his chin. I swear I remember the words. I saw a kid singing it on that internet thing. It definitely slipped my mind just now. But you remember, right? I mean, drive, Banner does. The smart part of you. His words, if they registered at all, had no soothing effect. The Hulk, fueled by an even greater rage, lunged at Gojo with terrifying speed. He launched himself from the crater he'd created in the ship, his massive form a green blur. He brought both his enormous fists down in a devastating overhead smash, aiming to crush Gojo into the ground. But, just like before, the blow stopped short. Inches from Gojo's head, the Hulk's mighty fists met the invisible, absolute defense of infinity. The air crackled, the ground beneath them trembled, but Gojo remained untouched, still levitating calmly. Gojo, his smile unwavering but now holding a hint of something colder, decided a change in tactics was needed. As the Hulk's fists hovered uselessly before him, Gojo raised a hand. A crimson orb of energy coalesced directly in front of the Hulk's enraged face. Cursed technique reversal. Red. The moment it formed, the orb unleashed a repulsive force of incredible magnitude. The Hulk was blasted backwards, not just hitting the ground, but being driven deeper into it, as if struck by an invisible meteor. A roar, a sound of pure agony and fury, ripped from the Hulk's throat, a sound that likely echoed for miles, a clear signal to anyone within earshot that something immense and terrible was happening. Before the dust even settled, Gojo saw Pietro, a silver streak, darting towards the downed Hulk. Wanda was with him. Pietro began to taunt the recovering Hulk, landing a few quick, almost imperceptible punches, clearly trying to redirect the giant's attention. At the same time, Wanda extended her hands, crimson energy swirling around them again. She was finishing what she'd started, pushing the Hulk further into an uncontrollable, destructive rage. Alright, now I'm a little annoyed, Gojo thought, his smile finally fading into a more neutral, almost dangerous expression. I really didn't want to hurt these two. Their backstory, the whole Sokovia bombing, being Hydra experiments, it's undeniably tragic. A real sob story, but their revenge, it's full of holes, illogical. It's like if a car killed their parents in an accident, and instead of going after the drunk driver, they decide to take revenge on the car manufacturer or the brand owner. It makes no sense. Just because a bomb with Stark Industries written on the side landed near their home doesn't mean Tony Stark himself flew it there and pushed the button. If they wanted to blame someone, they should have looked into Obadiah Stane, the guy who was actually selling Stark's weapons to terrorists back then. But no, they fixate on the name on the bomb, not the hand that threw it. It's childish. I tried to reason with them, even offered a bit of camaraderie. And what do? They take my attempt at kindness and use their powers on a genuinely good man, Drive. Banner, who just wants to live a quiet, stress-free life and not turn into a giant green rage monster. That's not cool. Gojo had enough. Pietro was now successfully leading the enraged Hulk, who was tearing up the salvage yard, on a destructive path towards the nearest city. That was a line Gojo wasn't going to let them cross. This wouldn't be good for anyone. With a thought, Gojo warped, appearing instantly between the running Pietro and the charging Hulk. He immediately unleashed Red again, a focused blast that sent the Hulk soaring upwards into the sky, temporarily removing him from the equation. Simultaneously, he tried to use Blue on Pietro, to ensnare the speedster. But Pietro was just too fast. Gojo's 6 eyes could track his movements, perceive his incredible velocity, but his own physical reaction time, while superhuman, couldn't quite match that instantaneous burst of speed. Pietro, seeing the Hulk launch skyward, tried to evade. Gojo, adapting quickly, expanded the field of his blue, creating a wide-reaching attractive force around Pietro. It wasn't enough to stop him outright, but it was enough to disrupt his footing for a crucial fraction of a second. Trees, grass, loose debris, everything in the vicinity was pulled towards the epicenter of Gojo's blue. Pietro, moving at speeds where even the slightest misstep was magnified, was running on this shifting, unstable terrain. He saw it all in slow motion, trying to navigate the debris field while carrying Wanda, but he inevitably slipped. He and Wanda tumbled, crashing hard to the side, their incredible speed working against them in the fall. Before they could recover, Gojo warped directly in front of them. Sorry, he said, his voice devoid of its earlier playfulness. You've run enough for today. He focused Blue on Pietro's leg. There was a sickening crack. Pietro cried out as his leg twisted at an unnatural angle, effectively shattered but, with Gojo's precise control, not beyond immediate, albeit painful, repair later. It was enough to ensure he wasn't standing up or running anywhere anytime soon. Wanda, seeing her brother injured, screamed in fury. She lashed out with her powers, ripping trees from the ground, tearing chunks of metal from nearby wreckage, and sending it all hurtling towards Gojo. You will regret siding with those murderers. She shrieked, her eyes glowing with crimson energy. Gojo didn't even flinch. He warped again, appearing directly in front of her enraged face, moving through her telekinetic assault as if it were a gentle breeze. Before she could react further, he gently tapped 2 fingers to her forehead. Her eyes rolled back, and her consciousness winked out, her body slumping. Wanda, Pietro screamed, trying to push himself up despite his mangled leg. What did you do to her? If you even touch her again, I'll kill you, you bastard. Gojo calmly used Blue to pull the struggling Pietro towards him. Then, with the same gentle precision, he tapped 2 fingers to Pietro's forehead. The speedster's struggles ceased, his eyes closing as he too lost consciousness. Yeah, Gojo muttered, looking down at the unconscious twins. You've both thrown enough tantrums for one day. So, how was it? Now it's only 1v1. Not gonna lie, I had to rewrite this chapter 2 times, BCZ I didn't like the first 2 versions. Thanks for Demikateru for suggestion for the story, and thank you all for supporting the book via commenting on the book. Let more comments in. If you have any type of question related to the story you can ask me here or in my Discord. If you want to read Madara x Marvel you can read it on my Discord for free. Well, see y'all in the next chapter. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it, add to library, Kazuma_Trash Creators Thoughts. To be continued.